So now with agile approach in play and that we have a starting point, let me see what my man Jose from app dev team is up to. Hi Jose, how are you doing? Yes, can you come on over please? I need some updates on Project Unicorn.
Boss.
Oh, Aja Jose. Wow, you sure look like the magician you are. What's up with the formal get-up on a Friday?
Sir, I'm no more magician. I'm Kabali today.
Oh, you're transformed?
Yes, sir. I understood. Magician is not enough. I need to be Kabali for at least for the project.
Okay. So you want to have the superpowers of the great superstar? Yeah, I think we would need that.
Yeah, at least a part of it.
That's good. So coming back to business.
Yes, sir.
So I just had a very good session on how agile would help us with this, and had a discussion with Ashok as well. So I wanted to see how that will tie up with the develop and test, as well as the release and deploy pieces that you own. So do you have any insights into how we can move ahead on that?
Yes, sir. Jokes apart, but seriously, we've been working a lot, and we've been surviving a lot on coffee, burning a lot of candles, thinking about this Project Unicorn, and I'm sure
there are a lot other liquids involved in coffee.
So we don't have budget this time, sir, for liquids. We just survived on machine coffees.
Okay. So what did you find out?
So this is the thing we found out. I wrote it down on a paper also, just in case I forget. Okay. So there are two things. We need to have a different approach in developing our application, and we need to optimize the way we are developing the whole application.
A different approach? I think everyone comes and says that. What do you mean by that?
So I had a discussion with my teams, especially with the architects, developers, and the digital teams, and also with the presentations we all seen. One thing is for sure, if we want to truly transform ourselves digitally in this connected world, we need to follow a microservices approach of building our APIs. In short, we need to have an API strategy.
What do you mean by an API strategy? Don't we already have APIs for all our applications?
Yes, sir, we do, but frankly, we never explored them to the fullest. We never exploited them. We had security issues, and integrating that with our partner ecosystem was a little challenge because of the difference in the data formats.
But I think just for the sake of integration, we had invested in ESB about a year back.
ESB, yes, sir, we did in ESB, but ESB is more of integrating our applications within the data center. But we are looking to externalize our APIs. ESB wouldn't fit in here.
Okay, so what do you think?
So, we need to have a plan to externalize our APIs, secure them, and also remove the problem of this data formats that I was talking about. Now, if you're going to follow the point-to-point integration that we've been doing, I don't think we have a luxury of time this time. So, we need to have a better approach in building our APIs. And most importantly, with this approach, we need to educate our customers on how they should be using our APIs, and that will become more important this time.
Okay, I hear you. So what do you think we should do?
Sir, I've invited Mr. Alex Wilson from CA Technology. He's the senior principal consultant for API management. He can help us with this.
Sure, looking forward to hearing from Alex.
Yeah, Alex.
Thanks, Jose, for the clue. So before Alex takes over, let me take the opportunity to introduce Alex Wilson, Senior Principal Consultant, API Management, CA Technologies. Alex Wilson has helped customers and vendors across a 30-plus year career in information technology, initially in Europe and now in Australia. In his current role, Alex leads technical pre-sales for API management at CA Technologies for the Asia Pacific and Japan region. He advises leading organizations on their API design, strategy, and architecture, and helps his clients put APIs at the center of the digital strategy. As an evangelist for everything mobile, Alex is a recognized thought leader in the API community. In previous roles, Alex has designed and implemented successful and innovative security projects. He closely follows security, mobility, and Internet of Things and has held the ISC2 Certified Information Systems Security Professional CISSP certification for 9 years. So let us join our hands together for Alex Wilson.
Get myself organized. It is good to be here. It's my second visit to Hyderabad, and I've visited many other Indian cities, so it's always nice to come here. I love the food. So let's check this works. Yes, it does. So the first thing for SureBank, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. I'm glad to see that you've stepped up with your dress sense, and you're wearing much more flashy suits to keep up with CA, which is good. And also, when I was thinking of SureBank and trying to make sure that this journey is a good journey and a successful journey, people should be smiling at the end of it, which is good. So I've managed to introduce, not quite Ganesha, but we've certainly got an elephant slide later on in the presentation that may give you some interest around some good things that can happen. And also, I'm between you and morning tea, I believe. Is that correct, Amit? That's correct. So I will try and keep to a good time, and I think 11:25 question and answers as we go. If someone says, just put their hand up. If you've got a question, just throw it out there, and I'll try and address it as we go. So, challenge for SureBank. At a very high level, the process is not about incremental improvements or minor operational changes, but about evolving the core business for SureBank to meet the demands of today's connected world. That is what I've heard. That is through meetings with SureBank, through customers and development leads, CIO, all the way down. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to deal with competition and move this organization forward by adopting current technologies and future technologies to solve our problems. There's some pretty pictures and there are some words around here, but the digital enterprise, when we think of digital transformation, the digital enterprise and application economy is what we are dealing with. Today is the age of the customer. Everyone has a mobile device and everyone consumes services in the way that they choose to. But for an enterprise, they have to deal with many other players apart from just the consumer themselves. Obviously, they have to consider mobile apps, and SureBank is thinking about mobile apps. Cloud services come into the mix. When we think of microservices, most people consider microservice as a small, bounded context application that we can deploy in the cloud rapidly and we can expand rapidly. So we have to deal with cloud services, and that may be new to organizations. The developer community, our partners, and our other divisions within our organization also need to be encouraged to use the technology that we've got, but we also want to service them correctly. Make sure they're using our services well and to their own success. Social environments, feedback. When we think of mobile apps going out there, there's not only the review where the user goes, click, yes, this is good. You know, they may be publishing information and comments within the social media. How can you make sure you capture that to make things better? And then ultimately, Internet of Things, big data as a stretch goal. It's all fair and well, SureBank saying we're going to do a mobile app. But what are you going to do next after that? And are the investments I'm making going to help me get there? APIs are the perimeter. Application Programming Interfaces. It's a piece of technology. It's a piece of code. And most people who are not working at the code level say, well, why is it important to me? APIs, have been around for, and it's as a term, probably for about 6 or 7 years. SOA services before that, previously for another 8 years. But generally, API is a recognized term, and most applications that are getting shipped today have an API for some reason or purpose. When we think of microservices, and SureBank have gone, we need to do microservices. You cannot do microservices without an API strategy. It's impossible. The way you rapidly build, rapidly deploy, communicate, manage that API, the microservice, do your authentication, your encryption, all of that has to be taken into account. And if you're building a microservice without thinking about all of those things, then you're doing it wrong. So an API gateway and an API strategy is fundamental to a microservice. So what do? So CA creates, secures, and manages APIs. My own portfolio, the API Management Suite, CA acquired that technology by acquiring a company called Layer 7 about 3 years ago. Based in Vancouver, global company, been in the market for about 13 years. Industry leader for Gartner, Forrester, you name it, whichever analyst you wish to choose. Originally, it was designed as an XML firewall. So when we were in the SOA services and we were transferring XML messages and handling messages between applications, we needed some way of bridging that and providing authentication, a level of encryption. So initially, it was deployed into military environments. Very large deployment across most military installations in the US as a starting point. We then deployed into the financial organizations. So I'm confident one of you will have a credit card from either MasterCard, Visa, potentially American Express, maybe not, Citibank. All of those transactions for all of your credit card payments go through our gateways on a global sense. Okay, so we do this. We do this at scale, at performance, and we do it fairly well, we think. So we create, secure, and manage APIs. So that's enough at the high level. Let's think of SureBank's challenges. And in discussions with the team, we came to the conclusion that these are the 4 key challenges that SureBank have highlighted. And we'll go through these in the presentation. But at a high level, we need to integrate or expose data from our existing ESB and our legacy applications so that we can deliver this value to our clients through mobile apps. Security is fundamental. We cannot break what we already have. We must protect against new threats and OWASP vulnerabilities, Open Web Application Server protection, a list of common things through web applications. But we also need to engage our developer community. And we need to build that community by giving them APIs, giving them access to our data where appropriate, and allowing them to innovate. So we'll go through those 4 things as we progress. This was my water. Good. So why invest in API management? And SureBank, I think, will get great value from this product set and this solution. They had this company, this upstart or startup, who came along and produced this new API or new mobile app, and they're beginning to lose customers. So they're trying to respond to that. SureBank is in this place, probably somewhere here within multi-channel, thinking about cross-channel engagement with their users. If we think of the history, and we go back to most banking organizations and most government organizations, and if you go back 10 years, almost all organizations, the organization, the entity, controlled the user experience. So if I wanted to do some banking, get some cash, wanted to get a loan, I had to go to them, into their branch, make an appointment, stand up and say, yeah, I'm good, please give me some money. The rise of mobile devices, the rise of mobile apps, the rise of the financial and tech industry destroyed that. I can now go on my mobile app, okay, the top 10 companies to get a credit card today, please. Okay, this one, cool. What do I need to give them? Press. Here's an application. I choose, just like I choose my insurance, if I want to bid for something on eBay or something, the lowest price wins, but I still get the service. So this one channel that used to be in play moved to a multi-channel where I could still go to the branch. I could do it through a web browser, and I could potentially do it through a mobile device, but the experience was different depending on the services and the maturity of the bank. over the past few years, some banks are figuring out this single sign-on concept. So if I should be able to see the same experience, provide the same credentials, get access to my information, the same look and feel. But now, if we get to the omni-channel experience, I should not have to make the decision. The bank should present me with my data in whichever way I want to choose it, whether it's a kiosk, a branch, a mobile, my laptop, my wife's laptop, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So, omni-channel, something that we're trying to get to, and SureBank are certainly focusing on this, initially for a mobile app, but then broader based. So let's come back to the 4 challenges, and we'll go through these challenges, and I'll try and give you some insight to customer experience. So the first one we talked about, and the challenge that I see that the bank has, is they've been running their projects with very tight coupling. The traditional waterfall approach, long projects. The desired result is normally the outcome that happens, but it takes too long. And there is no flexibility to leverage components of that across other applications or other data sets or other use cases. There is no reuse of the technology. You just start again at the beginning and you get to the end again. Solution, and I'm offering with API management solutions, but also additional CA products. We think of terms called decoupling or unbundling. We can connect the ESB, the SOA applications, the legacy applications through APIs. They allow for data and application reuse. They allow for flexibility, faster time to value. And I think the time to value is key for SureBank because they have a rapid 2-month journey here. Everyone has an architecture slide, so I wanted to make sure I got the architecture up front before I got to the pretty pictures. If we think of an agile platform architecture, at the bottom, SureBank has its applications. Yes, they may already have APIs, as they've discussed, but they're not leveraging them. We leverage them through a platform and API gateway. It is a policy enforcement point where our APIs can be exposed to be consumed by whomever, whether it's another department within the bank, another application, another service, or potentially through the internet to our customers for consumption by mobile apps. But we imbue the security and the governance that this company wants. So we think of security, we have wonderful terms called authn for authentication, authz for authorization. What am I allowed to do based on the context that I'm within? Identity bridging. We already have our customers and user stores, but we've already got our employees, and we may wish to open up another directory for other type of developers coming in. What happens if we're successful? That's what we want. We may have 500,000 customers today, but I want 5 million tomorrow, and I may want 50 million the next day. If we're successful, the platform you choose must be able to scale and perform through certain technologies. And for the technical people in the room, we must be able to represent the data. So when we think of SOA applications, legacy applications, these are potentially proprietary protocols, proprietary information. How can we transform them into something that can be consumed by a mobile app? The term is representation, and there's some wonderful words and 3-4 letter abbreviations for them. I'll not go into them just now, but we can if we want to deep dive. I think that's probably a time for the developers and the architects and the analysts in a separate discussion from today. Orchestration is another term, another thing that needs to achieve. You know, I'm pulling this data from multiple sources. How can I make sure that we're providing only the right information, combining it, representing it at the right spot? Connect to our ESBs or databases, virtual, cloud, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. And finally, there, traffic management. As an example for SureBank, I think of the Royal Bank of Scotland. For those that wonder what my language is, it's not English, it's Scottish. So the Royal Bank of Scotland is a use case I'm familiar with. We all have customers. I hope you all have customers or citizens. If you're a government agency, you have citizens, and then you have customers. Some customers or citizens are more valuable than others. So how can I deliver the correct level to that client or citizen as opposed to the others? So traffic management come into the bank. They took out a loan, but we hide the loan amount. They took insurance. They paid out a loan, got a mortgage. You know, there may be a history of this client, and I want to share that with a partner for some use. We could create a microservice. So I've got all of that data in my back end. Why don't we just create a microservice of the history of clients, take that, push that in the cloud, expose an API. The data is safe, it's not protected. That is a microservice concept. I can run it, I can scale it, I can serve it to my insurance clients, or my insurance partners, or my brokers. From a financial perspective, that adds value. When we think of monetizing APIs, that is the path to monetization. If you have data that is either valuable or usable, and someone is willing to agree with you, then you could charge them for it. So engaging with developers, getting analytics, getting feedback. Okay, second problem. SureBank has a great reputation with its clients and with the public for not having publicly available security breaches. They may have had one or two breaches and they're very cognizant of the security, but generally they've protected their information and their customers' data clearly. This is seen as a blocker towards agile development of mobile apps. We cannot break or lose the trust of the customers. So within an API management strategy, we leverage security to deliver trust. Bit of a concept to think about, but in essence, we make sure that the security is rock solid. I mentioned military-grade security. This is what we deliver. We deliver it through SDKs at the mobile device, so we can guarantee that the device, the application, and the user are who they say they are when they're performing this transaction. And again, we have some nice technical buzzwords, but in essence, from a security level, the API gateway, the API solution is that policy enforcement point. It fails closed. If it fails, you know, there's nothing left open. It utilizes all modern communication technologies, OAuth, OpenID. A lot of organizations have invested in SAML, which is a security assertion markup language for authentication across websites or web APIs. We can take that, transform it to an OAuth token, and that's the language of mobility. Lots of words on this screen, and I'm not going to read them, and it's up to you if you want to read them or not. But we provide software development kits for common platforms through open source methods. So we can guarantee to SureBank that they're going to utilize technology that's open source, exposed to the market, but guaranteed security. No vendor lock-in when we're thinking of mobile apps. You can basically call someone else's gateway if you so choose. With our solution, we can deliver great security, rapid development of the app without the mobile app developer having to concern themselves with that security negotiation. That is what we guarantee. Okay, number 3. And I hear this from customers, you know, we've got SSL. Surely we don't need anything else. Well, I'm afraid you do. And the security principal at SureBank in a conversation understands this, but the business doesn't. Hey, you've got SSL, you encrypt some data and it's all good. Well, no. Zero-day attacks, there's a whole raft of other things. Denial of service. Basically just bad coding. If developers write bad apps or start calling your APIs in the wrong sense, they can just as easily bring your service down as someone who's being malicious. So our solution allows you to lay down a governed level of security for these APIs, and it will protect the bank against most threats, if not all threats. It can replace some of your web application firewall capabilities. It can replace some of your malware protection capabilities at a message level. No custom coding, payments card industry compliant, military grade, and referenceability globally to do this. This is why I mentioned at the start, MasterCard, Visa, Citibank, this is why they're doing this thing. It's much easier to go and rob someone than it is to try and break down an API. So again, just at that high level, there are many other layers of security this capability offers. Message level threats, confidentiality, integrity, redaction, obfuscation. There's all great words that we can dig into later, and your technology team will love it. But the final words here, we still think of what if we are successful. Maximum performance, scalability, and reliability. Our solution will guarantee that without custom coding. And this is where we start to introduce some pretty pictures, which is good. And just as a use case, I studied Disney from a child. Did anybody study Disney from a child? Watch the movies, which is pretty cool. And I just watched Jungle Book on the airplane up here again, the new Jungle Book, and I did quite enjoy it. But Disney is a force unto themselves. So there are good guys. Last year, Star Wars was released globally within a 2 or 3 day time frame. Has anyone seen the Star Wars movie? Couple of hands. This is morning exercise. Guys, you can put your hands. Yeah, that's good. Well done. So Disney paid Lucas, what's his name? George Lucas, and some others, billions of dollars for the franchise for Star Wars. Yeah, before it was just private equity and whatever else. But Disney said, we're in it for the long term here. There's another 3 or 4 movies planned going forward. The book series was only 6 books, and we've seen all those. This was number 7. They've got 8, 9, and 10 on a schedule going forward for 15 years. Disney's here for the long term, okay? So they paid billions of dollars for that, which is cool. But there are the bad guys. And as with most digital media rights, when you're releasing movies, or what's your biggest challenge? People get a copy of it and then cut 1 million DVDs globally. Everybody's buying it for $1 or 50 rupees or whatever it is. And, these companies don't want to do that because they've got merchandising, advertising, global rollouts of the media and everything else, and it's very important to people like this. So what they did was the people who were entitled to show the movie, they were individually granted a certificate through our gateway. So mutual authentication, a person registered, they owned a movie theater or a set of movies, and his name was, Fred Nerk. He had a name, he had a home address, he had a business entity, and he was issued with a certificate, a mutual SSL X509 cert. That was tied to and stamped onto the media that was finally shipped to them within a 24-hour period before they were allowed to show the movie. Done through our gateways globally, which is pretty cool. So we were important for the release of Star Wars. Isn't that cool? I thought we didn't know about this until we started talking to them, and they came and told us all this thing. So we were responsible for the safe and reliable and financial release of Disney, this movie itself. And we thought that was pretty cool. They have our gateways globally. Every transaction anyone does with Disney goes through our gateways. There's 150 billion transactions per year. That's not one big gateway, by the way. That's multiple globally through different data centers, which is roughly 4,700 transactions per second. Every second. Keep going. So quite proud of them. They've been a customer of ours for a long time. If you ever go to any of the Disney theme parks, I've been studying Internet of Things, and they have something now called a Magic Band, which is basically your identity on your wrist. So that if you're going into a hotel, you open your hotel room with the Magic Band. If you go into the park, you get access to the rides through the Magic Band. If you want to buy the latest Goofy, Magic Band. It's all encoded and kept in there. The user experience begins before you get to the Disney, and then it lasts after you leave Disney. Can't remember, Paget, I think it's Robert Paget is the guy who's got lots of patents around that technology. But they released it in Florida in the US 3 years ago. It's on all the cruise ships and their hotels. But they're slowly moving to near-field communication, NFC use. This Magic Band has NFC, RFID, and a bunch of other things. But as they move into China with an opening of Disney World in China, Shanghai, they're moving that technology into an app with NFC-enabled devices. That is their strategy. So it's somewhat changing, but pretty cool. Last one, challenge and solution. And we're slowly coming to Ganesha, or the elephant. And this is what they've described. Partners, how can they engage with partners and developers, and how can they drive innovation? So we can do that. And how we advise customers on that is we have to treat our APIs and our developers separately. They're not all one and the same thing. There is different life cycles of developers and how they engage with you. And there is a different life cycle of your APIs. APIs must be treated as products. You have a product owner. You have a life cycle. You have a business value tied to that API. You have a user story. We talk back to Agile again, then we have a user story for that. So there's things you have to do, and we have what's called developer portals, which allow you to stand up your shop front for your APIs, whether it's internal or whether it's external. So SureBank will be more customer-centric through digital transformation. I wanted to get to this. This is one of my customers in New Zealand, Auckland Savings Bank. They have our gateway technologies, internal focused private APIs, but they also have partner APIs where they have developers engaging externally. They also drive innovation, and they allow people to innovate. Software engineers are pretty good at innovating. So what they thought was, okay, how can we get 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds engaging with us? Because when they're 18, 19, or 16 opening up their first bank account, we want them to open it with us, not with the competition. So they came up with this IoT device, which is pretty cool. Basically a yellow elephant, which is a savings bank. And in the UK, we call it a piggy bank. I'm not sure what the term is here, but it's a savings bank. You put your rupees in there, your dollars in there, your pounds. It has an LED display on the front of it, which shows you how much you've saved. And it's not based on what you're putting in. It's what you're tracking through your app. So your parents can show the app. You can teach the customer some value of savings. You can take the piggy bank, put it in an account. But the child sees this wonderful little toy, IoT device. Batteries in it, and it does wonders for kids. I thought it was pretty cool. So as we help SureBank along the way, there is a digital maturity path for them, and there's various customers at certain levels along the way. We have great experience in helping customers for the past 13, 14 years in this API journey. Finally, we will make sure you get a new app launched, and it will be very highly rated. And just from a final comment from Forrester, so this is not my words, APIs are perhaps the most critical technology in digital business design and digital transformation. So before I wrap up, is there any questions from the room? Yep. And I'm mindful of time, so if I could ask that, I don't want to have to cut you off. So
first question is for the SSL.
Yes?
I really could not understand, but I understood that SSL is not enough from your delivery.
Right.
Then, in fact, from the government perspectives, what we do usually, we enforce the participants or the people who join the infrastructure, data center infrastructure, to host their applications, we usually enforce that you use the SSL for your application, right? And particularly we enforce when it is a financial transaction based applications, particularly. Now, from your delivery, as I've understood, it's not enough. In that case, what else to be enforced to the customer, right?
Okay.
Or whatever, the participant. We do not say customer, we say that the government departments.
There is a calling client. We just think, in my term, I just reference it as a calling client. So if I can kind of not paraphrase, but repeat the question. So if I say SSL is not enough, what is enough? What is enough is such a long answer, it's debatable. However, the SSL component is purely a secure socket layer. It's an encryption level. I have a certificate at one end, I have a hash algorithm, and I have a key at the other end that allows me to decrypt that.
Exactly.
So, but if it's a denial of service attack and they've got my SSL key, you know, they can flood me because it's a true connection. SSL is still communicating. SSL is a decrypt encrypt algorithm. It doesn't do inspection. It doesn't suggest that I may have a hijacked client and it's hitting me 1,000 times a second instead of normally 5 times a second. So from a denial of service perspective, cross-site scripting. So I may be getting attacked from multiple sites and they're all using SSL. Fine. That doesn't, all it gives me is a level of encryption. If I can get the key, that part has fallen down. It is a good level of encryption, and depending on your certificate chain, so your certificate key, if you, 18 months ago, mindful of time, how much longer do I have?
I think we're
2 minutes?
out of time.
Couple of minutes? Okay. The standard encryption certificate for browsers was upgraded from 512 bytes to 1024. Everybody complained. Well, this is because local computing power, basically that could decrypt a 512 key through a brute force attack. I've now got the power in here, so we had to upgrade that. So SSL is not indefeatable. If you've got enough power, you can deal with that. You must get also to the message level. What is the context of the calling client? Do they normally do this type of transaction at this type of day? Cross-site attacks, denial of service, just bad coding. If you stand up an API and you've got a developer who did some mistake in their coding when they're calling you, but they have a certificate and it's valid and they're meant to be calling us, that could bring your system down. So I hope that answers that one question. I'll give you a chance to ask one more.
I understand, as you said, the customer or the participant, if he audits its application and find the vulnerabilities in coding, and then mitigates those vulnerabilities by changing the codes and whatever, and then generates a certificate which is basically vulnerability free, and produces it to me, then is that fine? Is that enough along with the SSL? So that part is anyway there, right? Application auditing and all that.
Yeah.
But do you say anything more than that? I understand you said that the customer can be hijacked for using the encrypted channel.
Good.
If the customer is hijacked, or even the PKI infrastructure is hijacked, right? What is the solution for that?
The context. So, and I'll try and state the question again. So if normally the PKI is not hijacked, normally it's a client that's hijacked.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about this is because SureBank is thinking about they need to expose more of their data through APIs externally. That is the key tenet that we're thinking of here. So that exposes some of your access to your data from an outside world at a scale level. So if a client is hijacked, we must have some other layer of protection and defense in depth, and hopefully most people understand that. And we can enforce that at the gateway. Do we protect against everything? No. Someone can get a username and password just as maybe not just as easily as a certificate and get access to that. So my comment is that SSL is a mindset that needs to be challenged, but it's not something that should stop you doing it. There are other capabilities to solve that. And I must allow, if I'm just hopefully that addresses it, but I'll see if there's other questions in the room. Thank you. Is there other questions?
I have one more question before.
We can take that offline if you don't mind, because I've got others in the room.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm hearing bots are the new generation of apps strategy.
Yep. Talk about the new generation of app strategy. So in a mobile app development, are we talking about developer code, the actual programming language, or are we talking about the strategy for developing native apps as opposed to hybrid apps? In my world, so I'm working with a medium-sized bank in Australia today who have 600,000 customers. And they initially developed a Microsoft .NET framework to provide a banking app externally. They did that about 5 years ago, and they realized that it's failed. They went through a waterfall approach, and they have to move to a much more fine-grained, not fine-grained, loosely coupled architecture of developing rapid releases. So they've moved away from this end-to-end monolithic thing, and now they've got mobile app developer, they have an API developer, they have our gateways in the middle, and the actual sharing of information in the mobile app, they can develop native apps quite generically now. The skill base is out there to develop native apps. They no longer have to develop it in-house to solve their problem. They can outsource that because these people have skills. The bank is not a software company. The bank is a banking company. So the direction for mobile apps is engage developers who are doing it, allow them to develop on platforms that they choose. You shouldn't be prescriptive in that, and they can do that. Do I have time for one more? Yeah, one more. Sorry, yes, sir.
Yeah. So I have a few questions, but I'll just limit to one.
Thank you.
Or maybe
I'm here for the day, so we can
1.5 actually.
Okay.
What's your philosophy on open APIs? And as a corollary to that, like for a financial institution, since it's a financial transaction, typically we prescribed two-way authentication, right?
Yep.
With two-way authentication, you need to know who is the consumer on the other side because you need to share those security tokens. So
if you say much more, I'm going to forget the first question.
All right, I'll repeat the question.
No, I've got it. I think I understand it.
Yeah.
So what's my viewpoint on open APIs? So open APIs, and I would loosely term them as public APIs. They are next to non-existent. And there was a flurry of public APIs over the past 5-6 years. Some financial institutions provided open APIs or public APIs, but they've shut them down as well. The direction is no, we don't do public. Governments do public APIs, but that's normally, I've got data that a citizen is entitled to, so how can I expose it? But you still layer in some level of authentication. Who's the partner consuming that service? We don't restrict them as long as they can register that they are a citizen of this country. So public APIs with outside government, not happening. When we think of a financial transaction, if I think of my bank I'm working with right now, mutual authentication, I agree wholly. In a financial sense, mutual authentication is you and I have had a coffee and we've shared keys, we're now coming back. That key is the only thing that allows you to transact with me. It is embedded within our software development kit. So our SDK for iOS, for Android, for PhoneGap, Cordova, through OAuth, authentication, identify yourself, we then make sure the certificate is registered for the device, and that is a mutual authenticated SSL channel from the mobile app, user mobile app device, to my gateway. So yes, we fully support that, and that's something we deliver out the box. So yes, it is required. So I'm going to call that to a halt. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll hand back to SureBank.
Thank you, Alex.